Hi, I'm Elizabeth Russell. I am so happy to welcome you to this session where we will be discussing radical belonging and how we can use our beautiful imagination to create a better world together. We'll have about 20 minutes together, and I would like in that time to share with you what I mean by radical belonging, and also to share a little bit of a distinction about the generative imagination as distinct from what we think of perhaps normally as imagination, and then some of these other layers of radical belonging and how we might support ourselves in arriving at this state. But perhaps first we could take a moment to just breathe together and just pause with me. Notice what you notice as you settle. Maybe soften your gaze or close your eyes. Just settle in for a minute. And we'll start with this pause. And just consider a time in your life, whether it's recent, this week, or something from your childhood, a time when you felt a deep connection with nature, some part of nature, a creature or a tree, a landscape, a moment or place that you have gone in the past or go now for sanctuary. Allow this experience with nature to sink into your heart as you breathe. Letting that energy of deep connection that you remember, just letting it soak in. Draw it into your heart. You might notice a feeling of gratitude rise up as you do this. Just receiving. And we'll take another 2 breaths with this receiving and gratitude. Thank you. Just a good way to remember why we're here. I do want to mention that I am the creator of Dream Fruit, which is a series of books and tools that are intended to activate this quality of connection with the living body of Earth, whether it's in parts like perhaps the tree that you might have remembered, or a moment that you might have had with a creature, or as a whole, the whole organism of Gaia as a single system intelligence. So Dream Fruit is really designed to support returning to relatedness with this. And what motivated me to create Dream Fruit was really a need to feel a greater sense of connection with Earth. I know that we all know that we're living in a time of uncertainty, a certain amount of chaos, climate breakdown, and extreme weather, certainly a degradation of our natural systems. There's been a huge amount of loss of habitat for our wild kin. Social divisions have been increasing year after year. We're just seeing more and more complexity in our shared experience in our communities and in our larger global condition. Well, for me, in the early 1990s, right out of college, I was keenly aware of the threats to our world, and I set about to make a difference. I did a lot of conventional activism during that time, And one of the things that I did was I helped to create a sustainable living education project with a nonprofit organization, and did a lot of wonderful education. That project is still in play today. It's doing wonderful work. I'm happy to say that. And what I felt is that I was working really hard, a lot of hours, working on policy proposals for our city and county energy and environment commissions, working on individual sustainability, lifestyle education, working on mass transit solutions, looking at all of this range of possible responses to the problems of our time. And I was tired. I hit, of course, the burnout point that maybe some of you here might have experienced as well in your work. But that burnout point is a very real thing, and it's also a really amazing opportunity to learn. And what I found in my deep state of burnout was that I had been trying to solve the world's problems with little tiny band-aids, behavioral and policy level band-aids. But what I was seeing that was really living at the root of all of these challenges was actually a crisis of connection. We are living in a situation that is generating tremendous trouble for not just humanity, but for all layers of life on Earth. And this problem is this illusion that we are separate, that humans are not deeply interwoven with the living body of Earth. So rather than addressing the symptoms of this crisis, I have committed myself and have spent my adult life learning about what it is to reconnect, what it is to heal this disconnection at the root of so many of the problems of our time. So rather than attempting to generate yet another policy or strategy, all of these things we need, lifestyle changes, these are really important. It's just that I found that my particular task is to work at the end of the day at this piece that is that we need to understand that the world is not separate from us, that what we do to the world is in fact also done to us. This is a very traditional, ancient understanding, and yet somehow we have wandered far from it and caused tremendous problems for ourselves and each other as a result. So this has been my task, and radical belonging is really what I'm seeing as the opportunity to resolve some of the fundamental underlying challenges. We can shift from attempting to control our world to co-creating with it. And I see the radical belonging as a way to awaken that ability. So we're moving, to give you a sense of what I mean by this, for example, we're moving from an egocentric or even anthropocentric way of being toward a more ecocentric way of being, where rather than only thinking about how a decision might affect me or just me and my family or just me and my community or me and humanity, I'm also thinking, how will this decision affect the whole of life? And is there a possibility that there is support and energy available to rise to meet that decision, whatever it is, from the more than human world, because it is in service to life? And so these are the opportunities that live inside of radical belonging. We return to relatedness, we re-earth ourselves, we expand our sense of self to include the larger breathing body of Earth. We enter this reciprocal dance, a participatory engagement with the larger beyond human world. And inside of radical belonging, there are many ways to get there, and I see that there are 3 layers that of engagement and of approach and practice that can really awaken this sense of radical belonging. And that's what I want to talk about today in just the next 10 minutes or so, to share with you these layers of radical belonging and tools or perspectives that can support it. One of those is natural time. Another is the generative imagination, and we'll talk about each of these. And the third is animism itself, engaging with playing with a different worldview. So we'll just kind of explore these pieces one at a time, and we'll begin with this idea of natural time. So natural time is just a simple way of saying we might not only have the chronological straight line of time from birth to death that the Western mind has been sort of trained to perceive. That in fact, the wheel of the year is turning through seasons, that the world itself is round, and that our earth is surrounded by other round things that move in circles. And we have a moon that goes through phases. It goes from new to full and wanes again. And the cycles of that very simple movement affect us on a daily basis. Whether it's something that we can sense in our own embodied experience or something we witness. I know that there's a common cultural observation that there are typically way more 911 calls when the moon is full than when it is new. That's a simple way to observe how human behavior is affected by lunar cycles. But as we ourselves just sort of realign and attune to that one observable cycle of time, we can find that our own embodied experience is more paced with the natural flow and is more informed by and perhaps even supported by the flow of these cycles. So as the moon waxes and wanes, we might find that we have more energy as it's growing, and we might want to retract as it wanes. So finding this path toward natural time away from that linearity is one really key way to return to this sense of radical belongingness. And of course, we don't have that much time today, but I will share that in the Dream Fruit Almanac, it is a planner, a lunar planner. So it begins, each lunation is how we measure the time rather than the more arbitrary months of the year. So that is just one piece that's available. And whether or not you're working with Dream Fruit, the Almanac and Planner, just simply tuning into these observable cycles in your life will begin awakening this sense of radical belonging. Another key piece of radical belonging that is near and dear to my heart is reorienting to our imagination, which is an inborn faculty for humans. We are all gifted with the power to imagine something, and we have the ability to awaken that imagination in a generative way. Now, the imagination is going to be there no matter what. And this is something that I talk about quite a lot in my classes and groups, and certainly Dream Fruit, the Almanac, develops this quite a lot as well. But just to share with you that in moments of stress and anxiety, the imagination can become quite active. And what we can see, it can activate in a couple different ways. We'll just name 2 for now. One is it can become escapist. The imagination can get really busy rationalizing or fantasizing or deluding us into thinking that something is different, or even denial is a form of imagination. And so rather than that response as a stress response, we have this other option, which is a generative imagination, where we we make this faculty practical. We link the beautiful gift of imagination to source. We link it to a sense of the larger body of the earth. We link it to something that we might even want or desire. And in this case, I'm speaking specifically of a regenerative future, which is something that I hope that many of us want for ourselves. So as we link the imagination to something greater than us, it can bloom into vision, and it can become generative. Brian Swimme, the wonderful cosmologist who tells the story of the birth of our cosmos, says that so much depends on our imagination. In fact, the future is born first in the imagination. And Caroline Casey, a visionary activist and astrologer, says that the imagination lays tracks for the reality train. And so we can see that there are options. In a time of stress, we can kind of choose to kind of deny and kind of go to fancy, happy place, or we can use that very same tool to dream something better, which is the invitation that, of course, I'm extending to you today, that we are at a point in our world where dreaming something better is a way better choice than denial or escapism. So in Dream Fruit, this is developed quite a lot. Each lunar month begins with a dream from the future that activates the symbolic mind and activates our ability to kind of move in a nonlinear fashion with some possibilities. And the third thing I wanted to share with you today in our final few minutes is this idea of animism. Re-enchanting our world by imagining and considering that it is alive and intelligent and sentient. And so as we are kind of dissolving this illusion of separateness and kind of toxic individualism and anthropocentrism, where it's just about the humans, we can consider that the stones, the soil, the trees, the clouds, the water, the plant kingdom, all of the animals that we share this earth with are alive, intelligent, sentient, and enter into a greater sense of reciprocity with these parts of our family. This is our relatedness that we're placing into our thinking. So we can consider that when we look around, even if it's inert items in our homes, our silverware, our computer screens, the clothes that we wear, they are imbued with a certain amount of consciousness, of sovereign agency. And that all of these things and beings are co-arising with us to meet us and create our experience in the world. And that this is the kind of fundamental interrelatedness that the entire world ecologically functions upon, and that we as humans have simply separated ourselves from and pretended is not there. And so animistic lenses can be very useful as a way of sort of working that muscle of considering that the world is alive and rooting for us and wants to live with and through us. And there is an opportunity to practice re-enchanting our world. So these are just a few pieces of radical belonging that I hope can become useful practices for you in your day-to-day life. Of course, you can tune in to my world of Dream Fruit by visiting my website, elizabethrussell.space. And my gift to you today is my ebook of the 13 Lunar Dreams from the Future for 2021. I hope you enjoy it. I just want to invite you to take another moment as we close to breathe with me. In the same way that we opened, we'll just take another moment here as we close to breathe together. And as you breathe, just remember what it was that you called to mind when we began our time. What moment of deep connection with nature, what tree or creature or landscape or experience. And breathing through the heart, feeling the gratitude that you have for that, and letting your breath move toward that moment or that creature or being or landscape, to breathe toward it almost like a ribbon extending from your body out toward this other, and let that breath be a ribbon of connection. Notice that we are breathing together, that you are breathing with. And just take one more breath with this connection, with this ribbon of light. I just want to thank you so much for your time today, and I'm wishing you many happy moments of radical belonging as you move along your path, and I very much look forward to connecting with you in the future. Please do reach out to me with any questions. Be well.